The Mom View is sponsored by the Herzog Foundation, and this is going to be a great show. The current abortion movement sells empowerment and freedom to women, but there's a very dark side to this industry that's kept hidden from most of us. Today on The Mom View, two women who were insiders in the abortion cause tell us what they learned behind the scenes. It will surprise or even shock you. Welcome to the Mom View. Joining us on the couch today, as always, is Debbie Krolitis.
Hello.
Ali Leger, and our guest host. We are so glad to have you again, Jillian Anderson King.
Welcome, Jillian. So glad to have you.
So I just want to start out the show today. We'll just jump right in with the conversation.
Yes.
The culture of life or death in the United States because of the abortion issue. There have been 63 million abortions in the U.S. since the Supreme Court legalized abortion in 1973. And we know largely who's behind that is Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's just the industry. It's not medical assistance or you're right for women. Mm-hmm. It is a billion-dollar industry. And I think that's really what we need to get to the heart of it. This is a money-making industry, and lives are being lost at every corner on this. So it's not medical health care.
No, and it's not reproductive rights either. Right. There isn't anything reproductive about killing your baby. That you're essentially ending everything. So it's just the way that they hold on to that. And then we understand by the creator, Margaret Sanger, who created kind of Planned Parenthood. She was a part of the eugenics movement, I guess you would say, or culture. And it really was to, rid the planet of Black people and people that are less intellectually inclined.
And who gets to decide that?
Right. Apparently, Planned Parenthood does.
Yeah, on every level. It's absolutely disgusting. The majority of their money, we know, is based off abortion, and that's why they start grooming people. Planned Parenthood pays for funding to be in schools to make sure we are grooming children into sex. They are also moving across, other countries, pushing this agenda to promote other forms of abortion in other countries. It is disgusting how sick and accessible it is. It's disgusting when you see all these undercover videos. Really, they are aiding in sex trafficking. They are aiding in these abortions of minors. It's absolutely disgusting. It's the devil's greatest creation to take away, life like this. And it's such a lie that we were bought and sold. I think the feminist movement, another satanic movement. And it is really ripping apart a whole generation of people that we'll never meet. It's redefining what it means to be a woman and a mother, and they're repackaging it into a lie. And that is really, really sad. We have a culture of selfishness, independence, we have this whole movement of moms that want to be boss babes. And I mean, I was bought and sold that lie myself. I bought that lie hook, line, and sinker. Never did I have an abortion, but I mean, I bought that lie. And we have a very, very selfish culture here in the West. And it's so sad. And it's so unfortunate.
And when you don't have respect for life in general, from in the womb to out of the womb, I mean, it becomes a culture of death. And I think that's the saddest part of it all is, how do we not protect, the most vulnerable, our babies, the future generation.
It's also interesting that you can find microorganisms and call it life on a different planet, but when it's growing inside of you, it's a fetus. It's not an actual living thing. It's weird.
None of the arguments ever stand up. You can see any pro-abortion argument doesn't hold when you ask them certain questions. When is life valuable? They can't give you an answer. When does life start? They can't give you an answer. It doesn't.
Their answer is when the mother decides.
That's right.
That's the answer.
When the mother decides she wants it. So when your 13-year-old is acting up,
right.
You have the right to decide you don't want it anymore. I mean, it's absurd.
And off that, the other thing I hear is, because they can't live without themselves. Okay, I've had 2 babies.
Yes.
They still can't live without me once they're born.
That's
right. I've also had grandparents. There's sometimes where they can't live without help. So are they just no longer beings?
Right.
Yeah. Do we just end it? We have people who are in the middle of their life that need supportive care. they can't live on their own. Do their lives not matter?
And from
None of
this,
the arguments
no,
really
it
make
doesn't.
sense.
And from the same party that touts civil rights,
No rights for the
no
baby.
rights for the baby.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, part of me just feels like everyone's gotten the fact that this is a baby and that there is a little bit more hope. Well, in the Gen Z generation, there is more hope now. I think a lot of them have really done their research. They know this is a child and they're looking at it a little bit differently, I feel like.
So,
Well, and they've even said that they are the most pro-life generation
Yeah.
that we've had since Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
Coming up, you will hear the story of a woman who was used by the abortion rights movement to legalize abortion in Brazil, even at the cost of her own life. Stay with us.
The Herzog Foundation exists to catalyze and accelerate the development of quality, Christ-centered K-12 education so that families and culture flourish. To do so, we've created comprehensive programs designed for Christian schools across the nation. One of those programs is found at readlion.com. The Lion carries news articles covering issues especially related to the education of children. These are timely, critical, must-read articles for families, educators, and leaders. Another program is the Herzog Foundation Institute, where we provide training for Christian educators led by national thought leaders in subjects such as marketing, donor development, and culture building. All training events are fully funded by the Herzog Foundation. And finally, with new Christian schools popping up all over the country, we've created a free online resource to help with the process. HF Schoolbox provides lessons and free mentorship to help launch groups navigate the startup process every step of the way. We're the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more at herzogfoundation.com.
Welcome back to the Mom View. Sara Huff had an abusive, violent childhood in Brazil. At a young age, she was forced to do whatever it took to survive. That led Sara to embrace a female empowerment movement. It would take her many years to discover the truth behind the movement and what they were willing to sacrifice to achieve their goal of legalized abortion in Brazil. Sara, it is so good to have you on the set. I have to say, when I met you, and I think Debbie was at CPAC too, and we had an opportunity to meet you. It's going to sound a little crazy when you hear her story, but I was so inspired and empowered by your story. Started out tragic, but it has a triumph at the end. And if you could just start by telling how your life began that led you into this path.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm originally from Brazil. I grew up in a family. Unfortunately, one of my brothers, he was on drugs. He was doing drugs, and he turned into a very horrifying, violent drug dealer, and he abused me and my parents for many years. That was the upbringing that I grew up. At the age of 16, unfortunately, he kicked me out of my house, and my parents, unfortunately, they were so scared of him. He was so violent, and I just started to live on the streets. And on the streets, I came to understand the prostitution world, which was horrible. With only 16, I got abused. Anyways, we know exactly what happens in the prostitution world. And I was raised as Catholic, but at this time of my life, I was hating God. I was hating the family institution. I was hating men. I was hating everything.
Well, it's understandable. Your brother was abusive.
Yeah.
You were in that life and kind of probably felt like God and the church turned against you or didn't
Exactly,
fulfill your
'cause
life.
Parents by letting you go too.
Yeah, I thought, well, everybody's telling me that God loves me, that I am daughter of God, but who is he right now? Is not taking care of me. Why is he allowing everything that happens in my life? Everybody's happy but me. So I was very angry towards God. So at this point of my life, with almost 18 years old,
Wait, so for 2 years, you were living completely on your own, just trying to survive.
yes.
Okay.
And in the context of my life, I discovered the feminist movement with this beautiful promise of empowered man, independence. They have this propaganda, and it's so seductive for young women, especially those who are under pain or struggling with something. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is everything I need. They are teaching women how to be empowered, independent, free. They are
You were
telling
looking for
people-
community too, weren't you?
Yes, there's this seductive propaganda who tells that we need to take care of our bodies, that we need to, our body, our rules. And I was so like into it that I need to help other women in Brazil. I thought, well, I'm not the only one struggling with life right now. All I know is no other woman goes through whatever I'm going through now. I don't want this. So I want to fight for women's right. And that sounds right. Sounds awesome. So I started to talk with some feminist groups in Ukraine because they're very well known. Their name is Femin. They are known to go topless and do a lot of protests. And I thought at that time that was awesome because they were, fighting for women's right.
In Brazil.
All over the
All over
world.
the world.
They were all
Okay.
over the world, but they were located in Ukraine. And they told me, you know what, you speak well, we like the way you think, we would like to invite you to come here. So they fund a whole trip from Brazil to Ukraine. And when I got there, I thought it would be only me, but there were over 40 women, young women from all over the world, from US, Mexico, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Turkey,
Wow.
all over. And we stayed there like for 40 days and we received it was like a camp. I thought that I would be there, with my friends, learning how to do, battle cries or flyers. But no, it was very intense. It was fully brainwashed that they did with us. And some situations, they will consistently tell us that we were not individuals anymore. Now we were like soldiers of a revolution. And when we question about what is this revolution about, they will tell us that now we were like soldiers and we needed to give our life to build up a world that will be safer and more just with women, with minorities. And now we needed to build that world up for that. And I was nobody. I had no family. And now I had this big importance of fighting to build a world to protect women and minorities. Wow, that's a huge privilege for me. Now I have something in my heart. I have a goal in my life, And the training, it was just horrific.
Yeah, but I want to make sure that all the parents out there listening, we want you to know exactly what this training was. You need to know because this is what Planned Parenthood is pushing. It's what USAID is funding and other organizations like that. So tell us what the training was like.
Well, I'm sorry, sometimes it's so shocking for me to remember, even though it was over 10 years ago. But in one circumstance, they made us to get completely naked, and it was over 50, almost 50 women there. And we were just there standing up completely naked, and we needed to repeat everyone, each one in their own language. And while we were just doing this, I am a slut, for over 4 hours. And that was, in the beginning, it was horrible because I don't think there's any other word that could be more offensive for women. So it was very, weird, awkward. But after 4 hours repeating that, it just felt normal. It just felt reality. So I just came to understand years after that is a technique of giving another meaning to the word. They were dehumanizing us.
Right.
So now
They're programming you.
Exactly.
Brainwashing.
Exactly. So now
Cultish.
that it wasn't more offensive. It was something that will empower me. Acting like that, it will be like empowerment. They told us another time we should hug each other for hours and hours, and we should repeat to each other, I love you, you are my comrade, but for the revolution, I might kill you. They will do several things to us. They will beat us up. And we're talking about men. I wasn't trained to be a feminist leader by other women. It was pure men.
And you were nude in front of the men too?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And it's important to tell. I know it's not every single woman in the world who defines themselves as feminists. They weren't trained in Ukraine. But I trained a lot of other leaderships when I came back to Brazil. And those who were trained with me, they did the same. So sometimes it's not that your daughter that is at home, she will be invited to go to Ukraine to be funded and sponsored and trained. But sometimes she will get brainwashed by someone who did that, or someone, it is a cycle, because those things, they're not coincidence. And
So they were creating little soldiers to go out and recruit more. And
yes, and I did that for 5 years, and I was being funded.
So you left Ukraine
and I
back to Brazil
yes.
to be a soldier for their message and their cause.
Yes, and when I got in Brazil, when I got there, I wasn't expecting that I will just turn into a political celebrity in my country, because they have all the context of the mass media. They have the power to do that. So they turned me into a big liberal celebrity at that time, and I was relevant enough to go on TV shows every single day and speak about stuff that they told me to speak.
And they were funding you this whole time. You had your own apartment, your own car. They were funding you for everything.
Yes, and a
So
paycheck
I
every
have a
week.
question to that. So when they're funding you, are they expecting certain numbers or certain groups?
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit more, like, we want to keep funding you, what do you have to do to heat?
Yeah, they will give me orders every week. What should I protest about? What shows should I go? What should I tell? What should I teach?
Messaging.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I don't know if there's a recruitment number. That's what. Okay. That makes
yes,
sense.
Brazil
Spokesperson.
is the Christian, most Catholic
Right.
country, and abortion wasn't legal. Still, it's not legal, thank God.
Mm.
But the first message, we had a plan, and the first half of the plan, it was promoting anti-Christianville to try to build up a society, especially towards young people, where we could dehumanize and Christian values. So we will towards people to abortion, because you cannot in a world in a country where abortion is not legal, you cannot go just there and say we want to legalize abortion. You need to start building up
Influence. You
Change
have to be
the culture.
influence.
clients.
Breaking down the.
We need clients.
Clients.
So we need clients. So we need to give them the problem. So the problem is hypersexualization. It is all this culture that will build up, and then once we change that, we can offer our services. So
Wow.
that's
demand and supply and
and,
demand. Right.
Create the
I
problem.
don't. Yeah, exactly, and give
And give the
false
solution.
So you became very famous, and everybody knew your name, and then something dramatically changed
Oh
in
yeah.
your life.
At the age of 22, I got pregnant, and my lifestyle, it wasn't prepared to receive a child, and all my friends, feminist friends, and especially those that I was receiving orders from Ukraine, they told me, that's awesome, because now you can have an abortion. You can go ahead, because we need.
So they're celebrating your pregnancy by saying, "Go get an abortion."
Exactly.
They're celebrating the opportunity of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
But you're in a country where it's
Right.
illegal, so how did they manage that?
Because I was the most famous feminist leadership in the country. So can you imagine the big opportunity? What could we do with the press and the mass media? Oh, the biggest feminist leadership is pregnant in a country where she cannot have a safe abortion. What she's going to do? So we will have the main opportunity to push the abortion legalization through the Supreme Court. And then that's what we were trying to do. And they told me, and I said, I'm not sure if I want to do that, because I was pushing so hard that agenda. But when it happened to me, I was scared, because I am a human being. And they told me, and sometimes I look back and I think, how could I be so ignorant? How could I be so uneducated to not understand basic biology, to understand what it was going inside my own body? Because they told me, whatever is inside your womb, it's not a person, it's not a human being, it's not a baby, it's just a clump of cells, it's just a blood clot, and all that, all this dehumanizing language, all these techniques and strategies they do to mislead people and lead them towards a mistake. And I said, okay, it's not a human being. All right, let's do it. I want to help the cause because feminism taught me that motherhood, it was equal to enslave. I didn't want to be enslaved. I didn't want to serve. So, of course, the feminist movement took from society the act of serve, the act of nurturing. They're telling us that we need to act in a selfish way, that we need to pursue our dreams only. But the act of serve, nurturing, or give ourselves to someone, no, that is impossible. That's patriarchy, and we need to destroy
I
it.
love that word patriarchy they keep throwing out there. Okay, so I'm gonna just tell a little bit of the story from here because I want you to follow up from where it went. So you became pregnant. They convince you to have an abortion. They give you the abortion pill.
Yes.
But they didn't give you instructions like you need to go have a DNC once you have an abortion. So you ended up having an infection.
Oh, wow.
And you lived in an apartment complex, again, fully paid for by this movement.
Yeah.
And you lived in this apartment. And when you would come up and down, you would see this man and his wife and children, and you just hated that man.
I hated that.
Because
Who was he?
he was just her neighbor.
That was my neighbor.
But he was a Christian man, and he was a patriarchy, and he kept looking at that woman like she was enslaved, and she hated him. And when she got really sick, and she called out to all her feminist friends, none of them came.
Oh.
And she got very, very sick until it got to the point where she was screaming out for help. And who came and saved her?
My neighbor.
The patriarchy.
Exactly. My neighbor. I called all my feminist friends and they wouldn't pick up the phone. Mysteriously, all my over 10 people that I called, the phone was just shut down. They wouldn't pick up the phone. And my neighbor he literally broke the door down and he rescued me. He grabbed me, he put me in his car, and he drove to the hospital, and he paid for all the medical bills. And I used to hate him because he was a white Christian male.
Oh.
And he and his wife, they took care of me for almost 6 months because I went through the post-abortion syndrome. It was something horrible in my life. And my feminist friends, they never came, they never showed up. And then I understood.
I want to interject the fact that you suddenly don't have a car, don't have an apartment, don't have a paycheck because you're no longer pushing their agenda.
So they dropped you.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
They did. Because I started to understand that they used me in the most vicious way.
Yeah.
So they did it on purpose. They gave me the pills. They told me how to take it. They told me not to look on the toilet, but they never told me that I should get a DNC. I never did. So I got sepsis and I almost lost my life. I needed to receive a lot of blood transfusions. It was ugly. I lost one of my fallopian tubes. And then because God loves me and he's truly merciful, he gave me a second chance. And 6 months after that, I got pregnant again. And now my little miracle is almost 10 years old.
Wow.
But I came to understand that what they did to me was on purpose. Remember that one of the trainings, it was hugging ourselves and say, I love you, you are my comrade, you're my friend, but for the revolution, I might kill you. They knew exactly what they were doing. So they were just using me as a pretext to legalize abortion.
You were the most famous woman in the country.
They wanted me.
If you died because you couldn't get a safe abortion, then they had an agenda that they could push to get their laws
You
passed.
would have been
They were
on the
willing to
picture of
sacrifice
everything.
your life
Yes,
for their
exactly.
agenda.
Wow.
Exactly. And when I left the movement, I went through a severe backlash. It was just horrible. They found out where was the place what I was leaving. They threw rocks. They beat me up in the street. They broke my teeth. It was just ugly. I started to have to walk around with bodyguards. I need to move city. It was just ugly. But thank God, I live in a free country now.
Yeah, what
So
is life like
you
for
found
you
a
now?
wonderful man.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have
Tell
your
us.
miracle baby, and you have stepchildren,
Yes.
and you have a beautiful family, and you live right here in the United States of America.
Yes, and
Wow.
thank God I had my second chance. Now I am mother of my own child. Of course, we have some challenges. I have an autistic son, but I think motherhood, it doesn't matter the shape, it just sanctify us, you know. Now I am stepmother of 4 more, and I have a wonderful husband, and I had the opportunity to go through to over 25 countries telling my story and telling people that we don't need ideologists to celebrate who we are. We don't need ideologists like feminism or anything to just accept our nature. Women, we are already powerful. We don't need empowerment. You know, I always say men, to conquer a nation, they need to do war. Women, we just need to smile.
I love that.
This is
Yeah,
why
that's
your
That's
story
true.
inspired me so much to come from the ground up, from
Such
where you came from,
healing
and now
on
to be
you.
the powerful voice that
Wow.
you are for life, for family, but most of all, for the power of motherhood. That is incredible.
Thank you.
She pinpointed one of the biggest arguments they have here in America. Well, if it's not legal, they're going to do it illegally. It's going to be not
Yeah.
safe. Not ever recognizing that there's always a death.
Right.
Exactly.
There's
Exactly.
They never want to point that out. But that's like a huge argument. Well, they're going to do it illegally. You want those hangers again? And she just knocked it out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you, because this is just like, I've never heard anything like this. This is wild. And this cult thing, I don't even find, like,
A cult.
it's
That's
easy.
exactly
It's
what it
easy
is.
to like. I easy to believe, but I've never heard anything like it. So I understand God saved you. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Mhm.
But like, can you tell me a little? I mean, you had some like PTSD, not just from the abortion, but from the whole process. Can you share any insight to like kind of how he grabbed you and rescued you, and what the biggest things are, and if people are going through? I mean, your story is by far one of the most traumatic things I'm sure people have similar situations. Any advice that you could give them, or share things that you could share, how he saved you?
It was just a miracle because I was alone. I was by myself. I couldn't even get up of my own bed. It was just very ugly. There was a severe bleeding. Even the smell that was coming out of my body was just horrible, a death smell. I knew I was going to die. And it was just so ironic that the man that I used to hate for 6 months that I was living in that apartment complex, only because he was a Christian. There was no other reason, you know? And in all this turning point, because God sent a Christian man to save my life. So I think people need to understand that sometimes we try to struggle with our own nature, and we try to struggle with the order of things. And sometimes it's just easier if we accept the fact that we are here because we're supposed to, and because God is always, I always thought why I am suffering so much, why God is allowing me to go through all these painful things. And now I understand it's not why, it's for. So I think that's a good insight.
Look what God has done. What a miracle.
Thank you.
You are a living miracle.
You are a miracle.
Yes.
And you're so inspiring. And
you.
I'm just glad that you were able to be on here and share
Yes,
share
thank
this
you so
story.
Thank you so much.
After the break, a former Planned Parenthood clinic director, Abby Johnson, pulls the curtain back on the immoral strategies used by this organization to keep the money flowing. You thought you heard the story that was big here. Just wait till you hear from Abby. Right back.
America is under attack. Our families are being crushed under the politics of a radical agenda. But moms have had enough. We are standing up and we are fighting back.
This is our battle. This battle is every bit as important as the Revolutionary War because we fight for the same thing.
Moms for America is a national movement of moms reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution.
I think Moms for America is exactly on track and is doing the right thing for the future of our country and our children.
Like, Moms for America is going at the heart of the issue.
I want to go on the record and say I'm for moms, I'm for America, and I'm especially for Moms for America.
But I am honored to join Moms for America today as we speak out against the horrific mandates.
With a national network of over 500,000 mothers, Moms for America is one of the fastest growing movements of women in the country.
Well, the most dangerous place in all of nature is between a mama bear and her baby cub.
We are the change. No matter what, no matter where, and no matter how difficult the obstacles are that are facing us and our families, we will not give up and we will not give in.
So if not now, then when? If not you, then who?
Welcome to the Momland Revolution. Abby Johnson is known to many for her best-selling book, Unplanned, and the film that followed. The book chronicled her experiences working at Planned Parenthood and her dramatic exit from this organization once she fully understood the truth about abortion. Today, Abby is the mother of 8 and travels the globe telling her story and advocating for the unborn. Abby, thank you for being with us on the Mom View.
Yes,
course.
welcome.
Thank you for having
so
me.
glad to have you.
So your story is pretty powerful. You were able to hear Sarah's story. Does this shock you that Unplanned and the feminist movement is about demoralizing women and motherhood?
No, I mean, not at all. I was a part of Planned Parenthood for 8 years. I ran one of their large facilities. Our affiliate was the 3rd largest in the country. So no, I mean, nothing. I don't think anything I've ever heard about Planned Parenthood has shocked me before, because I was very complicit in the demoralizing of women and the devaluation of women.
So a lot of people talk about Planned Parenthood relating it directly to abortion, but I don't think they understand the broad tentacles that they have, and that the purpose is to make sure that the money continues to flow.
Yeah.
And to what lengths and degrees do they go to make sure that that money keeps flowing?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people ask me, why? What is the why behind Planned Parenthood? The why is ultimately child sacrifice. So, what we see today when we talk about abortion is no different than what we read about in the Old Testament. People were, walking up these temples, and they were throwing their children into, this fiery furnace, right? And they were sacrificing their children to these false gods and these demons. And why were they doing it? Well, they wanted success, rain, crops, whatever, right? Why are we doing it today? Why are we sacrificing our children today?
Yeah.
Well, for success, careers, selfishness, our desires, whatever it may be, right? Independence. It's the same thing. We call it something else. We call it abortion, but at the end of the day, it's child sacrifice. That's what it is. Yeah. We always want to call abortion something more palatable, but it is what it is. It's murder. Right. And I would say today that the way that babies were murdered back in Old Testament times was actually more humane than how we're killing them today.
Right, it's a different Baal.
It's a different Baal. It's a different Molech. But I mean, throwing a child into a fire, I would say, is more humane than taking a suction instrument and sticking it into the back of their brain and sucking their brains out.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's more humane than taking a clamp and pulling their arms and their legs off piece by piece while the baby is still alive and feeling that torture. So, it's same day, same demons, different day. And, but, Planned Parenthood is they, of course, it's the love of child sacrifice. How do they continue that child sacrifice? It's through normalizing abortion. It's through normalizing the murder of our most innocent. There's, of course, what follows with that is money, greed, all of the vices that that we worship and we love in our society. And that falls right into the hand of the LGBT movement, the LGBT movement and the abortion movement. You know, lots of money being funneled back and forth in between those two movements. People say, why would the LGBT movement even care about Planned Parenthood? Well, because they're both profoundly anti-God,
right,
and they're both profoundly anti-life.
right.
Wow.
So when I worked at Planned Parenthood, and this was, I left Planned Parenthood in 2009, so we're talking about 15 years ago. When I worked at Planned Parenthood, approximately 25% of our workforce identified as LGBT. It was 15 years ago. They identified as LGBT.
Were they more women or more men?
Well, if there's a man working at Planned Parenthood, he's gay. I mean, you can guarantee. If there's a dude at Planned Parenthood, he's gay. So, you know, now, I mean, you can imagine.
I saw the infiltration of those thoughts in there.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, like, if I would say now, I mean, it's probably close to about 50%, probably close to half of the workforce at Planned Parenthood as part of the LGBT movement.
Explain to me why that's so significant.
I was just thinking that.
Okay, I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So there's something really perverse and really demonic about a person whose sexual act cannot procreate.
Amen.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. There's something really demonic about a person whose sexual act cannot procreate telling a woman who has life in her belly that she should destroy that life. That is demonic.
Yeah.
And it's happening every single day in our abortion clinics. And this was all part, of what Planned Parenthood has been trying to do for decades.
Yes.
Because if you can, it's another way of sterilizing our children.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Is mutilating them.
Oh, yeah.
And this goes back to decades and decades ago. In 1969, there was a memo that was put out called the Yaffe Memo. You may or may not know what that is. It was put out by a man, and he was partnered with Alan Guttmacher. Now, Guttmacher was one of Planned Parenthood. He was the president of Planned Parenthood for many, many years. A lot of people, you know, they talk about Margaret Sanger and all of this stuff, but Alan Guttmacher was really, he was really one of the engineers behind Planned Parenthood. And he's the reason that we have the Guttmacher Institute today, which is really Planned Parenthood's research arm. So if there's a pro-abortion research article that comes out in today's society, it comes from the Alan Guttmacher Institute. And so there was this Yaffe memo that came out in 1969. And one of the things that they talked about, the whole plan of the Yaffe memo was how to decrease our population. Wow. Okay? And one of the ways that they wanted to decrease our population was to increase homosexual relationships.
Is it like planet saving? Like why?
Yeah.
Depopulation, I mean, it's to, you know, they want everybody to reduce their carbon footprint. They
Their
think
God
that
is
we'll run out of food.
Sure, yeah.
Destroy the family unit.
Yes, we're out of resources, all this kind of stuff that we know is not true. And so, I mean, but their God is the earth.
Yeah, that's
right. And so, but let me also say, it's not just any people. It's not just that they want to reduce all persons.
Certain.
They want to reduce certain people.
Yeah.
Okay. Bill Gates isn't creating vaccines and going into Dana Point, California. Right. And vaccinating the wealthy white people who live in Dana Point, California.
Right.
No. He's going into Africa, into the poorest nations.
And India.
And he is vaccinating, i.e. sterilizing because those vaccinations have a sterilizing agent that the women don't even know is in it.
Right.
And he is sterilizing all of these populations of women without their consent, without their knowledge. He's not doing that in the most wealthy parts of the country.
Sure.
He's not going and doing it in, Oxford, right? He's not doing it in white countries, in white wealthy people. It is specific groups of people, which is why Warren Buffett, who is the largest single person donor to the abortion industry in the world. Warren Buffett is the largest donor to the abortion industry, but he does not give money to the abortion industry for them to just use willy-nilly for anybody to have an abortion. No. He gives money to Planned Parenthood and the National Abortion Federation for them to distribute to abortion clinics for poor women to have abortion. So hear me say minority women to have abortion. So it is specific populations of people. And Warren Buffett is a person who is all about population control.
Yeah.
So of course he pitches it like, well, I'm making this available to those who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford this service, which everybody else gets.
Actually makes it like he's helping them.
Exactly.
Right. It's altruistic.
He's saving them.
Exactly.
It's altruistic.
The irony is when you look at it, and you already know this because you were with Planned Parenthood, when you look up any Planned Parenthood clinic, where is it?
Black and white.
It's in these struggling minority communities.
79% of them. So 79% of them are in not only minority neighborhoods, but what we consider super minority neighborhoods, where at least 85% of the population are Black and brown people. So it's not just like they're kind of minority, they are super minority neighborhoods. When I worked at Planned Parenthood, the last year I worked at Planned Parenthood, we had always had abortion quotas. We had always had a certain number of abortions that we had to sell to women every month. The last year that I worked there, and one of the reasons that all this became really troubling for me was that I was told by my boss and the CFO at my affiliate that we were going to have to start doubling the amount of quotas. We were going to have to double the amount of abortions that we were selling to people. And my question was, well, how in the world are we going to do that? I mean, what are you supposed to do? Just like ride around with our windows down and saying like, hey, come get an abortion, right? They said, we're going to strategically target Black neighborhoods in our community. Wow. That is the goal. People need to know that has always been the goal.
Has always been the goal
of Planned Parenthood. Until recently, until like 3 years ago, Planned Parenthood denied it. They said we were crazy. The pro-lifers were crazy for stating a fact that Margaret Sanger was a racist, that she believed in eugenics. They said we were nuts.
She literally wrote it in a journal.
She wrote it in a journal. She had an entire project called the Negro Project. The entire purpose of Planned Parenthood, when she first called it the American Birth Control Project, the entire purpose of Margaret Sanger, her entire belief system was built on reducing and eradicating the minority population, primarily the Black population, through widespread access to contraception and abortion. That was it. That was the groundwork for Planned Parenthood, first started in 1916. We now see her dreams coming to fruition, as now in some states, there are more Black babies being aborted than born alive.
Right.
Oh my God.
So this is really happening.
Yeah.
This is really happening. And up until 3 years ago, they said we were liars. We were all liars. And then a bunch of clinic workers, former clinic workers like myself, left a New York clinic, the clinic that was on Margaret Sanger Street. It was on Margaret Sanger Boulevard.
Wow.
They left, and a whole group of former clinic workers said, what's happening here is racist. There are racist things happening here in this clinic. They spelled it out, and the New York Times picked up the article, believe it or not.
Wow.
And they sued that Planned Parenthood. And it took those former clinic workers coming out, stepping out, and the New York Times picking up the article for Planned Parenthood to finally acknowledge that Margaret Sanger was indeed a racist, that she did have racist ideas. It took those former workers, and that is the power of a former abortion worker. It took that for them to finally tear down the name Margaret Sanger, because that clinic was called the Margaret Sanger Clinic. They tore down the name of the clinic. They took the name off the street. It's no longer called Margaret Sanger Clinic or Margaret Sanger Boulevard. Now it's called Bleecker Street. And just a few months ago, that clinic closed its doors, and that was the flagship Planned Parenthood clinic.
Yay.
So that shows you the power of our own voices.
Right.
That shows you the power of testimony. It shows you the power of conversion.
It brings me
and it shows you the power of truth.
It brings me to Esther 4:14. For if you stay silent in this time, you and your family will sure perish. Well, that like touched me. We have to speak up. We got to use our voice.
Yes.
That's
So
powerful.
if I were to say this sentence, how would you end it? Planned Parenthood is in the business of
child sacrifice.
That pretty much sums it up. We'll continue our discussion about the truth and lies behind abortion after this break.
For the moms of Moms for America out there, Cardio Miracle really truly helped me out personally, and I could see that. But it also helped my mom out, it helped my wife out, it helped my sister out, it helped my friends out. I've really seen the benefits, and this is a time for healing our bodies, our minds, and our souls. And Cardio Miracle has done that for me, and I think it also can do it for our moms. Head to our link, cardiomiracle.com/moms for a discount and to get started today.
So I think one of the things that we have learned from our discussion today is that Planned Parenthood has a single objective, and to reach that objective, they'll do just about anything. And that includes erasing women, demoralizing motherhood, and of course, there's the whole transgender identity that they're pushing. So, Abby, you were talking about the biggest. We are thinking that they're going to be turning into transgender clinics, but you said they already were.
Yeah, so it was a pilot project, a pilot policy, really, that we got from PPFA. That came down to our clinic in 2008. So Planned Parenthood started providing cross-sex hormones to men and women back in 2008. And I believe with all of my being that these ambulatory surgical centers, and this is kind of ironic, and I will say this, the pro-life movement, in an attempt to get abortion clinics to close, we forced them to build ambulatory surgical centers. Okay?
Oh, no.
Because we thought, well, they won't do it.
And
because
they did.
building an ASC is too difficult. But many of them did, including my affiliate. They built a 78,000 square foot.
Explain to me what that is.
An ambulatory surgical center is a facility where you can actually perform day surgery.
Okay.
So if you go get like carpal tunnel
Like an in-house
surgery or something, it's
surgery.
like a day surgery.
Day of
center.
surgery.
Okay. And so in the legislature, we were like, a lot of pro-life groups were like, oh, well, let's force the abortion facilities, because it is a surgical procedure. Let's force them then to have to uphold the same standards as an ambulatory surgical center, because it is a surgical procedure.
Right.
And so we put that into law.
Just to disincentivize
In many, in many states, because, if you're an ASC, you've got to have this crazy like HEPA filter, air conditioning system, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to put in. So we were like, they're not going to do that, right? But many of them did.
Underestimating the funding that
Yeah,
came with it and how
so
much money
many
they
of
made.
them did. And now I was driving by the Houston facility where I used to work, the affiliate where I used to work. They've got this beautiful, 78,000 square foot facility, 7 stories tall.
Wow.
The third floor is a dedicated surgical services floor.
Mm.
And I'm driving by it, and every time I drive by it, I'm like praying,
Right.
like, Lord, just redeem this center. I'm
Right.
telling you, one time I drove by it, and the Lord said to me, they're going to start doing transgender surgeries in that building. And my heart, I'm telling my heart like skipped a beat because it was almost like a clarion call to me. Like, this is the next battle.
Yeah.
And it felt really ironic because we had done this. We had fought, and it was almost, I felt like I had to repent.
Yeah. Unintended consequences.
In that moment,
we got to think of unintended.
Yes, because
especially when we're creating laws.
Because we had fought to regulate abortion instead of just abolishing it.
Yeah.
So Sarah, what would you say to all the women out there who have bought into this idea that the patriarchy and God and family, those are all the bad things? What advice could you give them when the world is shoving this down their throats?
Well, everybody wants to know the truth, and it's not the easiest way to get to know the truth. The easiest way is just go out there and listen what they have to say. But if you truly want to know the truth, there's no shortcut. You need to do it by yourself. I think true empowerment comes through knowledge, and you have to study. You do want to know the truth about patriarchy? Go study what is that. You want to get to know the truth about feminism? Because feminism is not, giving power to women. It's just a movement that aims the destruction of women's nature and the subversives of the sexes. So if you go through all the feminist literature, you will see the hate for men, hate for babies, the hate for childhood, the hate for everything. If you study the life of the most famous feminist authors, you will see that each one of them went through severe trauma in their lives. And what they're actually writing about is their own view of the world. That's not the truth. The truth is women are capable to do amazing things, but those things are not the same things that usually men are capable of. And that's okay. We don't need to mimic the way the man goes to achieve their achievements in their lives. We have our own way. And in the time the women understand how powerful they are, they will stop to seeking for more power, because we don't need it. We already are. It's inside us. We just have to accept our nature.
Us. And we do have all power. I'm just going to go back to that movie again. There's my Big Fat Greek Wedding. He may be the head, but I'm the neck.
I'm the neck.
And I can turn that. We already had all the power.
Great influence.
And we threw it away. The feminist movement convinced us that we needed to be men, and now the men are trying to be women. Apparently they've realized that we do have the power.
It's gone full circle.
Yes.
Well,
But
they're
I think something
demasculated.
that's super sad that, we talk about how many abortions have happened a year, just even in America alone. And now we're seeing this huge trans movement and parents that are pushing their children into it for whatever weird demonic reason. But now when people are starting to wake up to realize those were babies, that was wrong, that was life, I stole it, I robbed my child of a future, XYZ, they have to face the reality of what they did.
Themselves.
And I think, and I've seen that with a lot of people who get real mad about things I say online, it's they have bought told a lie.
Yeah.
They've been triggered because they fell into that lie, and they don't want to repent. They don't want to acknowledge the life that they stole, and they don't want to deal with it. Just like parents don't want to deal with the fact that if I say that was wrong what I did to my child, I have to live with that guilt. I think a lot of people have a hard time accepting the guilt and accepting the reality of the situation. And so they'd rather fight on the streets with no shirt on and saying this is women's empowerment than actually accept that they've been taking lives.
The root cause is trauma.
What
and
the
we need to heal from
real
it.
reality is that most people who buy into this have been deceived. Deceived by really good messaging and really great propaganda. It all sounds good. Going after those who are the most vulnerable, who've been victimized or have had troubled youth. And instead of going and helping them heal from the problems that they had, they mask it with a political agenda that is all about child sacrifice. And they will do whatever it takes to achieve that objective.
Yeah, and I think this is what I want to say too, just in closing, is moms, you have the greatest influence in your homes.
Yeah.
Teach and train your kids, right, Abby?
All of them, boys
Pray
and
with
girls.
them. Teach them at a young age to respect life and honor life.
If you don't, the world
Train them
certainly
up.
will.
Yeah.
But also, moms, it's important,
but let's recognize that males need to
Yes.
step up. This is a
Absolutely.
lie
Yes.
saying that
Absolutely.
no uterus, no voice. Men are should be the protectors.
Yes. That's right.
And they got to lead in this too.
Yeah.
They have to lead in this too.
Absolutely. This was such a great show. Good topic and incredible guest. Thank you both,
Thank
Abby
you,
and Sarah,
ladies,
for
for
being
all
with
your
us.
hard work, too.
And Jillian for being our guest host. So if you've missed any episode, you can catch it at themomview.com. If there's a show that you would like us to cover, a topic you'd like us to have, or a guest you'd like us to have on the show, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And you can check out us on all socials at The Real Mom View. And we'll see you next time on our couch on the Mom View.